What if I told you there are US state capitals so small and forgotten that barely anyone lives there? You might think the capital of a state would be bustling with people, businesses, and activity, but some of these capitals are practically ghost towns. What makes them so undesirable that they've become home to fewer people than some small towns? From limited job opportunities to sky-high costs of living, these cities have some surprising reasons behind their emptiness. Get ready to discover the 10 US capitals that hardly anyone calls home. Number 10. Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton, a place that might surprise you. With a population of around 85,000, it's far from the bustling, high-energy city you might expect from a capital. So why doesn't anyone want to live here? First off, let's talk economy. Trenton is a government town, and that's pretty much it. Over 40% of the population works in the public sector, mostly in state government-related jobs. The job market can be a bit limited for those outside of that circle. There aren't many large businesses or industries driving growth in Trenton, so young professionals and families often find it hard to make a living or get excited about staying long-term. It's not exactly a hotspot for tech startups or major corporate headquarters. Then there's the cost of living. Trenton is actually more affordable than some nearby cities, but it still feels like a bit of a hidden trap. The median home price in Trenton hovers around $190,000, which sounds decent, right? But the problem is that salaries don't always match up. The median household income is just under $45,000, making it hard for residents to afford homeownership without sacrificing quality of life. The crime rate is another factor. Trenton's crime rate is above the national average, particularly when it comes to property crimes, which can make potential residents a little hesitant. Then, you've got the location. Trenton is about 45 minutes away from Philadelphia and just over an hour from New York City. But here's the catch. Those nearby big cities have all the jobs, the nightlife, the culture, and the businesses people are flocking to. So Trenton ends up being this sort of commuter city, with more people leaving for better opportunities than moving in. It's like everyone's waiting for the right opportunity to pack up and head to the big cities. If you're looking for a big career, a vibrant social scene, or just something to do on a Saturday night, Trenton doesn't exactly offer that. Number 9. Bismarck, North Dakota. Bismarck, North Dakota. With a population of around 75,000, Bismarck might seem like a decent-sized town, but there's something missing here. Opportunity. The job market is pretty government-heavy, which is great if you're looking to work in state politics or public services. However, if you're a young professional looking to make it big in industries like tech or finance, Bismarck doesn't exactly offer much. About 28% of the workforce is employed in government, and much of the rest works in healthcare and education. But the real kicker here is the lack of diversity in the job market. The cost of living in Bismarck is relatively low compared to other US cities, with the median home price around $300,000. That sounds great, right? Well, the issue is that salaries in Bismarck aren't keeping pace with the cost of living. The median household income is about $64,000, but the price of housing is rising faster than wages. So, while it's affordable, it's not exactly affordable enough for people to feel comfortable putting down roots. If you're moving to Bismarck to escape the high costs of cities like Chicago or New York, you're still going to feel the squeeze if you're not working in one of the higher-paying industries. Let's talk about recreation and lifestyle. While Bismarck offers a lot of outdoor activities, think hunting, fishing, and hiking, it lacks the vibrancy of bigger cities. There's not much in terms of nightlife, restaurants, or arts and culture. People from Bismarck are often looking outside the city for these things. As a result, the city sees a lot of population outflow, especially among younger people who crave a bit more excitement. If you're someone who loves small-town living with a close-knit community, Bismarck might be perfect. But if you're looking for career opportunities, a bustling social scene, or a growing economy, you might want to look elsewhere. Number 8. Helena, Montana. Helena, the capital of the Big Sky State. With about 32,000 residents, Helena might seem like a lovely place to settle down. It's scenic, quiet, and full of history. But here's the deal. Unless you're working for the state government or have a passion for outdoor adventures, there's not much here to keep you long-term. Let's break it down. Helena's economy is primarily driven by government jobs, with over 25% of residents employed in public administration. It's a nice gig if you're in that space, but if you're not, the options are pretty limited. The job market in Helena is very narrow, with most opportunities in education, healthcare, and state government. The median household income here is around $52,000, which is a bit below the national average. It's enough to live on, but if you're someone looking to grow your career or explore new industries, you might feel stuck. The main attraction here is the outdoor lifestyle, with access to national parks, hiking trails, and ski resorts. But even then, there's not much in terms of jobs related to the booming tech and creative industries. So, while Helena has plenty to offer in terms of natural beauty, it lacks the economic diversity that keeps people from moving away. Now, let's talk about the cost of living. Helena isn't as expensive as places like Seattle or San Francisco, but the cost of living is rising steadily. The median home price is around $300,000, which is fairly high for a small town like this. That might be fine if you're making a solid salary, but it's a stretch for the average worker. The economy is slow growing, and it's not attracting major employers or large-scale industries, which leaves many people moving to other places like Billings or Missoula, where there are more jobs and a more vibrant atmosphere. Despite the charm of the city, Helena is just too quiet for many people. Number 7. Carson City, Nevada. Carson City, the capital of Nevada. With a population of just over 55,000, Carson City is one of those places that's full of history but feels like it's stuck in time. Located at the foot of the Sierra Nevada, the city is beautiful, but not a lot of people are rushing to live here. Why? Well, let's talk economy. While Carson City has some impressive state government buildings and is a prime spot for tourists heading to Lake Tahoe, it doesn't have the job diversity you'd find in a city like Reno or Las Vegas. The main industries here are government, big surprise, tourism, and retail. However, Carson City doesn't have the kind of booming tech sector, higher-paying industries, or startup scene that attracts young professionals. The median home price is about $300,000, which is relatively affordable, but once again, the wages don't quite match up to the rising costs of housing. The median household income in Carson City is around $60,000, which leaves many residents struggling to afford a home or even a decent lifestyle. As a result, people tend to stay in the area for government jobs or retire here, but younger people looking to make their mark tend to leave in search of bigger cities with more job opportunities. On top of that, Carson City is pretty isolated. It's not just the distance from major cities like Las Vegas and Reno, but also the fact that its economy doesn't offer much to attract new businesses or young professionals. Most of the city's income comes from tourism, but tourism jobs are seasonal and low-paying, meaning they don't support long-term growth. So while it's a nice place to visit or retire, it's not exactly the best place for someone looking to build a career or find long-term stability. Number 6. Frankfort, Kentucky. Frankfort, Kentucky, a town with a lot of charm but not much of a draw for newcomers. Frankfort is small, really small, with only about 27,000 residents, making it one of the least populous state capitals. So, why doesn't anyone want to live here? Well, for starters, Frankfort's economy is centered almost entirely around the state government. Nearly 30% of the population works for the government, and the city's largest employers are state offices and government-related services. While this provides job stability for some, it doesn't exactly attract a bustling job market. The lack of private sector jobs means that young professionals or people looking for career opportunities in industries like tech, finance, or media don't have many options here. In terms of cost of living, Frankfort is fairly affordable. The median home price is around $215,000, which is a great deal compared to cities like Lexington or Louisville, but there's a catch. Wages aren't keeping pace with the cost of housing. The median household income is just about $50,000, and that means that while it's affordable on paper, many people still struggle to own a home, especially when you factor in utility costs and healthcare, which are higher than expected in rural areas. The low cost of living is nice for retirees or those living off pensions, but it's not really enough to encourage younger people or professionals to settle down for good. Frankfort's small-town feel is a double-edged sword. While you can walk down the street and have your neighbors recognize you, it can also feel isolated. There isn't much to do beyond enjoying the historic downtown and visiting the nearby Buffalo Trace Distillery, which produces some of the finest bourbon in the country. If you like bourbon, this is a great place to be. But when it comes to nightlife, shopping, or cultural events, Frankfort falls short. The lack of entertainment options combined with a small workforce means young people are often leaving for bigger cities, creating a cycle of stagnation. So while Frankfort has its merits, charm, affordability, and history, it doesn't have the things that attract new residents who are looking for work, culture, or excitement. Number 5. Lansing, Michigan. Lansing, Michigan. With a population of around 118,000, it's the largest city on this list, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's thriving. Lansing is Michigan's state capital, but you wouldn't guess that from its lack of economic diversity. Over 30% of Lansing's population works in government-related jobs, which is fine if you're into politics, but not so great if you're someone looking to make a career in business, technology, or creative industries. The economy is largely dependent on state government and education. The Michigan State University is nearby, which provides some stability, but it's not exactly booming. If you're a young person or recent graduate, Lansing doesn't have much in the way of jobs that pay above average, unless you're looking for something in public administration or education. The cost of living in Lansing is low compared to larger cities like Detroit or Chicago, with a median home price of around $180,000. On the surface, that sounds like a steal, right? But here's the kicker. Salaries in Lansing aren't keeping up with housing prices. The median household income in Lansing is about $50,000, which is just about the average in the US. But with housing prices rising, many people find themselves stuck in apartments or dealing with less than ideal living situations. Plus, Lansing has a higher than average poverty rate, with nearly 18% of the population living below the poverty line. That's a huge factor in why people don't want to live here long term, especially when you're dealing with limited job opportunities and a high cost of living. And let's talk about quality of life. While Lansing does offer great outdoor activities like parks and lakes, the lack of diversity in the job market keeps it from being a desirable place for young people. There's not a lot of exciting nightlife, restaurants, or cultural events to keep people entertained. Plus, the winter months can be tough, with cold temperatures and heavy snowfall that can last for months. So for people who don't work in government or education, Lansing doesn't offer much else. The city's stagnant growth rate means that people often leave after graduation or work stints. It's like Lansing is stuck in a cycle where it's just big enough to be a capital, but not big enough to thrive. Number 4. Juneau, Alaska. Juneau, Alaska, a city that feels as remote as it sounds. With a population of just about 32,000, Juneau is the only US state capital that you can't reach by road. That's right. Getting in or out of Juneau requires either a boat or a plane, which means high transportation costs and limited access to the outside world. While it's beautiful, it's also incredibly isolated, which is a major deterrent for people looking to settle down long-term. For residents, that means limited access to resources, job markets, and even shopping options. It's not uncommon for people to have to travel to other cities for things like specialized healthcare or certain products. The economic activity in Juneau is centered around government jobs, tourism, and some fishing. But let's face it, it's a small slice of the pie compared to larger cities in Alaska. When it comes to cost of living, Juneau is expensive. The median home price hovers around $375,000, which is pretty high considering the remote nature of the city. The median household income is about $75,000, which sounds good, but it's often eaten up by high transportation costs and basic living expenses. People living in Juneau have to pay extra for everything: goods, services, even food. Plus, since the city is isolated, there's limited competition for businesses, which drives up prices even more. Not to mention, the weather is cold and gloomy for most of the year, which makes it hard for people to enjoy the outdoors during the long winters. You'd have to be truly in love with the wilderness and solitude to put up with all the isolation. So, despite its scenic beauty and being the gateway to Alaska's panhandle, Juneau's remote location and high cost of living make it an undesirable place for many people, especially young families or career-driven professionals. And with a lack of major industries or job opportunities beyond government and tourism, it's no wonder the population isn't growing. Number 3. Dover, Delaware. Dover, Delaware, a city of about 38,000 residents. You might be thinking, hey, Delaware's the first state. But let's be real, it's one of the least populated states in the US, and Dover doesn't do much to buck that trend. Despite being the state capital, Dover is small and doesn't attract many newcomers. The primary employers in the area are government and military, specifically the Dover Air Force Base, but there's not much else going on. The economy here is sluggish, with a major reliance on the public sector. Outside of government jobs, the city doesn't have a lot of business diversity to offer, meaning it's hard for younger people or anyone looking for a different kind of work to make a living. The cost of living in Dover is more affordable than some larger cities, with the median home price around $260,000. That sounds good, right? But the real issue here is that wages aren't keeping up. The median household income in Dover is just under $50,000, which is below the US average. This puts a lot of pressure on residents who are already facing the rising costs of food, healthcare, and utilities. Even though the city is affordable in terms of housing, the lack of job opportunities and lower wages make it difficult for people to thrive here. The cost of living might be low, but the quality of life just doesn't measure up. Dover's cultural scene is also pretty limited. There's not much in terms of nightlife, arts, or dining. While you can visit the Delaware State Capitol or the Air Mobility Command Museum, the overall vibe of the city is sleepy and small town, which makes it less appealing for those seeking a more dynamic lifestyle. With such a narrow job market and limited activities for young people, it's no surprise that many residents leave for other places that offer more opportunities and excitement. Number 2. Pierre, South Dakota. Pierre, South Dakota. It's got the unique distinction of being one of the least populous state capitals in the country, with just 14,000 residents. That's right, 14,000. It's not hard to see why it's so sparsely populated. Pierre isn't exactly a bustling metropolis, and in fact it's so small that it often gets overlooked by tourists and people looking to settle down in a state capital. The economy in Pierre is driven almost entirely by government-related jobs, with about 30% of the working population employed in state or local government. Outside of that, job opportunities are few and far between. There are some jobs in education and healthcare, but these aren't enough to drive the local economy forward or keep younger residents from leaving in search of bigger cities with more job diversity. The cost of living in Pierre is very low compared to larger cities, with the median home price around $230,000, which might sound like a good deal. However, when you compare it with the median household income of $50,000, it becomes clear that the city isn't exactly teeming with high-paying jobs. Many residents here work in government roles which typically don't pay enough to drive growth or provide significant upward mobility for individuals looking to advance in their careers. For anyone looking for a thriving economy or higher-paying job opportunities, Pierre is simply too limited to make it worthwhile. While Pierre has a lot of natural beauty, it's not exactly a city brimming with excitement. The winters are long, with snow and cold temperatures dominating much of the year. There's not a lot to do in terms of entertainment, nightlife, or cultural events. Sure, there's fishing, hiking, and camping for the outdoorsy types, but when it comes to something to do on a Friday night or a place to explore new hobbies, Pierre doesn't exactly have it. As a result, it's mostly retirees and state employees who call Pierre home. Young professionals and families looking to build careers or find more diverse job opportunities tend to avoid Pierre in favor of bigger cities like Sioux Falls or Rapid City, which offer a better variety of jobs, activities, and overall growth potential. So, while Pierre might be a great place for some to retire or settle down if they're seeking a quiet lifestyle, it's hard to ignore the lack of economic diversity and the absence of big opportunities, which make it an unattractive option for most people. Number 1. Montpelier, Vermont. Montpelier, Vermont. With a population of about 8,000, Montpelier is not just the smallest state capital in the US. It's one of the smallest cities, period. While that might sound appealing to some, for many others, it's more of a challenge than a draw. The main issue here is job opportunities, or rather, the lack of them. About 30% of the workforce in Montpelier works in state government or public services. But for those who don't, options are pretty slim. There aren't a lot of private sector jobs, especially in industries like technology, finance, or media. So if you're a young professional looking for a career, you're probably not going to find it in Montpelier. Vermont as a whole has a very rural economy, and Montpelier as the capital relies heavily on government and service-related jobs. The cost of living is surprisingly high for such a small city, with the median home price around $350,000. That's a steep price tag for a place where the median household income is around $55,000, which is below the national average. The gap between income and housing costs is just too wide for most people, especially when jobs are limited and wages are stagnant. In terms of quality of life, Montpelier is stunning. Mountain views, historic architecture, and a very tight-knit community. But here's the thing. Once the novelty of its quaintness wears off, the lack of cultural activities and entertainment options can leave people feeling a little isolated. If you like the outdoors and enjoy hiking, skiing, or simply enjoying nature, Montpelier might feel like a paradise. However, for those who crave nightlife, restaurants, or a thriving art scene, Montpelier is sorely lacking. The city is often described as quiet or sleepy, which is a huge turnoff for young people or families looking for a dynamic atmosphere. And then there's the weather. Vermont is known for its harsh winters with snowstorms and freezing temperatures that last for months. For anyone who isn't into winter sports or cozying up with a book all season long, Montpelier's long winters can make life feel a bit, well, dreary. As a result, Montpelier has trouble attracting people who aren't already a part of the state's close-knit communities. People who want more from their capital city, in terms of job diversity and overall excitement, find themselves gravitating toward other cities in New England that offer a better balance of opportunity and lifestyle, like Burlington or Boston.